Hi, my name's Byron Martin here at Logie's Greenhouses, and today we're going to be talking about the bat flower, or Tacca chantrieri. This is a native of Thailand, and in terms of its culture, we need to look at where it grows. It's a forest plant growing in the understories. It grows in areas of very high rainfall, so it likes constant moisture at its roots. And it also grows in forests that stay warm, obviously tropical forests, but these are tropical forests that stay warm. So basically our temperature requirements for it would be 60 and above. Can take a little dips if necessary at times, but you definitely don't want to grow it in a really cold spot. You need to keep even moisture on it, and that doesn't mean that it needs to be sitting in water, but you don't want to dry it down into a wilt. The flowers on these are quite spectacular. This is actually a small one. They get much larger. You see the long whiskers that come out of it. And it does tend to flower seasonally. Generally in the fall is its blooming season, although we do see it in the greenhouses flowering almost year-round, on and off. Its light needs are low relative to many plants, and so in an understory in a tropical rainforest that would be shade. However, when we're growing it in a home, you have to remember that there's even darker light inside of a home, so you need to put it into a window, a north window, east or west window. Definitely don't want to put it in a south window where it would get direct hot sunlight, but a little morning sun, afternoon sun would be good for it. The other key to it is the humidity, and it really is intolerant to low humidity. So that's something that is a little bit harder to manage inside of a home. It might put in an area where you have a lot of house plants. You might put a humidifier in there. You might grow it on a tray where there's evaporating water coming off of it. But you definitely do need to watch the humidity on it. It's not a dryland plant, and it's not a plant that tolerates low humidity very well. So as you can see, these long flower spikes come up. Periodically, here's the one where the leaf is actually yellowing. That's actually normal. This actually happens seasonally with the leaves, and we simply tear them off. It's really not a big issue there, as long as the whole plant isn't going backwards on you like that. You can see the young bud here forming, coming out of the center, so we're in the fall period of flowering right now for it. This plant is actually getting a little bit big for the pot and needs to be repotted. As you can see, it's quite root bound, and the potting mix for this is a very loose soilless potting mix. You definitely don't want to put it into a heavy soil. It prefers loose, airy soils. That prevents root diseases, helps quite a bit on that. And so in repotting it, we're simply going to go up a couple of inches and move this up so that, and I'm potting it just a little bit deep. Sometimes the plants get a little floppy at the base here, so you can pot them a little bit deeper. You can actually see some of the roots starting to emerge, and as you can see in this plant right here, there's offshoots coming. That's what actually makes these massive specimens over time. They can get quite large. I mean, the plants can become, 2 or 3 feet across, and they can have 17, 18 flowers at a time open on them. So there we go, we've potted it up, and that's probably sufficient to hold in this plant for at least a couple more years. In terms of pests and diseases, there really aren't too many insects that affect this in the greenhouse. Matter of fact, probably have never seen any eating it. I'm sure there are bugs that would chew on it. They do have some disease issues with the roots and with the at the trunk and the stem, so that's really creating and using a really open, porous mix rather than something that's heavy. That helps mitigate that quite a bit. As far as fertilizing goes, they do appreciate fertilizer. You just have to remember that, they are lower light plants, so they're not necessarily using as much fertilizer as they would under full sun. So as you feed, you want to make sure that you're feeding a relatively dilute form, and then feed and then clear water, feed and clear water during their active growing season. In the wintertime, when they're really slow, it's best to back off on that at that time of year and start again in the spring once they actively start to grow again. So there's a little bit of information on growing black tacca. If you'd like more information, please see our website at logies.com.